What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Love and Golf, a podcast about our romantic, passionate, and sometimes twisted love affair with the game and the valuable lessons the game has given us and what we give back to it and the community. If you've listened to a few episodes by now, you know my intros are the favorite thing that I do. The intros often build up and gas up the guests that I have and bring on. When I sat down to write this introduction, there were just so many different ways to take it and so many different hooks and so many different accolades and titles that this man has. It was almost impossible to write it. So I'm going to introduce Scott Tolley and not even give him a title, but this man, this gentleman is a close friend of mine. He has done so many amazing things in the world of golf. And the story that I'll lead in with is there was a year, I think it was 2018. I was at the PGA show, which is coming up right now. I was at the PGA show, and this could be 2018, 2019, and Scott couldn't make it. And I was walking around the show, and I think for some reason I had Scott's badge on, and everyone's looking at me like turning their heads like, what? Who's this? What? And the weight that Scott holds in the golf community and his reputation is so profound and so pristine that I wanted to get him on the show to tell the story of how he became Scott Tolley, how he became the manager to the GOAT, to one of the GOATs, to Jack Nicklaus, and his stories in the industry, what he's done for the game, with the game. Because, guys, this episode could easily be 5 hours long, but we're going to try and keep it to an hour. Without further ado, Scott, welcome to Love and Golf. And, brother, you are a close friend of mine. I'm just so happy to have you on. Thanks for coming.
Well, Michael, thank you for having me. It's an honor, to say the least. So I just want to know why I'm number 9. So no, why not 20, 25?
No,
Yeah.
no, dude. I think, Scott, you've helped myself personally in my life and Mully professionally in so many ways. I wanted to work out some of the kinks before I got you on, because this is a fun show, and like people know, there's a lot of golf podcasts that talk about athletes or the news and this and that, and I wanted to take a different stab at it. You know me. I'm really in tune with like life in the universe, spirituality and stuff like that, and like inspiration. Like I think that's the focus of Love and Golf and what I wanted to do, because golf, the way I talk about it, golf is this muse, right? It's this goddess. It's Stephen Pressfield talks about creativity as a muse and a goddess, and I look at it like golf is a muse and it's a goddess that everyone in the industry has this relationship to, and it's always different. But the gifts it's given us is kind of like this, values, morals, respect, honor, and then how we use it in our life is always different. So, the cool thing about your story, my friend, and I want to kind of lead in with this, is that sometimes in life, there's always, and excuse my language for anyone out there, there's always that like just fuck it moment. Like I'm just going to go for it. And I think myself included, I had that moment with my life and my entrepreneurial ventures. But like there's a moment that we just kind of, let's even go before that. There's a cultural narrative that we all kind of think we have to follow, grow up, get good grades, go to college, get married, build a house. And sometimes it doesn't work that way. Sometimes life doesn't happen that way. And sometimes you just got to say, fuck it and do it. And looking back at your life, managing one of the greatest athletes of all time, if not the greatest golfer of all time, being involved with so many different brands that you're involved with, advising and consulting, you do so much. Looking back though, when you look back, there was a moment you said, fuck it, in your hometown. And that kind of bred to this whole world, and can we just start there and tell
Sure.
people like how you started with golf? How did you find the game? And how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah. Well, since we're looking back, I better put my glasses on because all I could see was your fuzz. I saw all the hair because I have follicle envy whenever I talk to you, so that's why I'm wearing a hat. But it's appropriate for that question. The word volition means choice, and it's the power of choice, and it might be one of the most powerful words in the English language, because I think the choices we make in life, they not only define us, but they also help create our legacy. And my most significant choice, and there was a book called Who Moved My Cheese, which is a business book about making change in your life. And I moved my cheese back in when I was 25 years old. I grew up in a small Central Virginia town called Lynchburg. Went on to James Madison University, tried football, realized that 4'6", a 4'6" 40 and a 5'11", 195-pound frame wasn't going to get me much, even when I tried to be a kicker. So I became a journalist and had great success in college and went looking for a job. I interviewed in Charlotte, the Washington Post. They laughed at me. They said, you need to have 10, 15 years in this business, not some hotshot out of college.
Yeah.
So I ended up falling back on my hometown newspaper where I had interned. It's called the News and Daily Advance in Lynchburg. And it was going great. I covered the ACC. I covered the Washington Redskins. Liberty University, which you've heard of now, was just really getting into athletics. And next thing you know, 4 years later, I hate to use this word, but I don't know any other one. I had become a celebrity in a small town. I was doing like talk shows and I was doing, celebrity golf tournaments and softball games. And one day I was looking at the newspaper and there was a column sig of a guy that had been writing for the newspaper when I was a kid. And he was a brilliant writer. But I looked at that and said, with all due respect, I don't want that to be me.
Mhm.
I don't want to be a lifer. I don't want my column sig to be seen by someone 40 years later in the same newspaper. So that night I was working the desk and a story came through that the Palm Beach Post was not only the fastest growing newspaper in the country, but it was voted in the top 10 among sports sections. And I went, South Florida, Palm Beach, I'm 25, I'm single, let's do this. So without a job offer, I packed up my Ford Fiesta with everything I had.
Yeah.
I drove down to West Palm Beach, Florida, stormed the doors of the Palm Beach Post, met with an assistant sports editor by the name of Leo Suarez, and I kind of throw my resume down, my clips, and I go, "You got to hire me. I know you need to." And I'm like, this BS isn't going to work. And he starts reading through and goes, "You know what? We do." I went, "Oh, call my bluff."
So let me recap this really quick so I understand.
Yeah.
And by the way, for everyone not watching, just listening, Scott is still in South Florida because he's wearing a t-shirt, and I'm in a sweatshirt here. So, slight plug for Folds of Honor. So recapping this, so you're 25.
Yep.
You have this idea that you wanted more out of life. You didn't just want to be a journalist for this small town publication. Did you at this time? Did you have any vision of who you wanted to be in the world, or was this just I just wanted more?
I wanted more, but at the time I wanted to be the best journalist, sports writer I could be. I didn't envision taking it to any other occupation, another level. I wanted to make a big jump from a small town daily to one of the largest in the country and the fastest growing at that time. And
What year was this?
I knew you were going to do that to me. 1989. So,
Okay.
yeah. Yes, I'm an old guy.
No, but I asked for context. Is like, did you know? Were you into golf at the time? Was it just you were a sports guy? Like, where was golf on your radar?
I really enjoyed the game of golf. I picked it up in high school, but just with no lessons, just friends banging it around at a par three course with, it was mostly dirt, not grass. But it was pure. I mean, it's just golf, and I taught myself how to play, took a class in college, but it wasn't until I got into the professional world that I started playing on a regular basis. And it's, as we both know, it's one of the most amazing business tools. You're going to learn more in 4 hours in a round of golf about someone than you would in 4 days in a boardroom. And as we know, you learn how they handle success, adversity, integrity, honor, all the things that you mentioned earlier, you find out on a golf course when you play with someone. But I enjoyed the game, covered it in a small, like Central Virginia way, some couple of minor professional tournaments or big amateur events. But then I go down to the Palm Beach Post, and at the time, Palm Beach County was called the golf capital of the world.
So you knew that.
Yeah. So there was already a golf writer there. His name was Tim Rosefort, and Tim Rosefort went on to.
I think people know who Tim Rosefort is.
Yeah, well, let's re-educate him. He went to write for all the major magazines and Golf Digest, and then he always wanted to be on TV, and I admired that in him, his drive. And he worked for Golf Channel and NBC Sports, and he was an icon in golf writing, and we lost him way too young
Yeah.
to advanced Alzheimer's a couple years
Yeah.
ago. But he was a great friend and he inspired me. But I was always the backup guy. So if the senior PGA championship was at PGA National, he was the guy, the main guy, and I did like the notebooks and the sidebars. And that was where I first met Jack Nicklaus because he was competing in that, and I was part of obviously several press conferences. And I went on to cover uh, Florida Marlins, Major League Baseball for a couple of years. I did Florida State athletics for a couple of years. Did a lot of professional sports. And then in 1996, I had just finished 2 years of grueling Major League Baseball coverage. I think one year I was on the road for over 200 days out of the year. I missed one series, and it was in Atlanta. And our backup guy wanted to do it because it was his last year writing sports. So it was grueling. And to be honest with you, Mike, I hope it's okay to say it cost me a marriage. You know, when someone's not on a parallel path with you, career wise, and she's a very sweet woman, but lived at home until we got married, never been really outside of South Florida. And I was traveling all the time. So it was tough. But um, they said, hey, you're probably burned out, but we have a great opportunity. The guy that's covering sports only likes to do columns in the majors. We want you to be our main golf writer. And I went, I'd love it. Absolutely love it. And they told me that my writing style lent itself to covering the game of golf. I think that meant I was wordy. So uh, the first thing you need to do when you're covering golf in Palm Beach County, you got to go to the spokesperson in the game of golf, and that's Jack Nicklaus. And so I went to a couple of events and press conferences, met him, spoke to him. He gave me his home number, which at the time his publicist said he doesn't do that. He gives you a secondary number that just goes straight to a voicemail. So so he must think highly of you. I was like, that was great. Um, so that was the fall of '96. Then came January of '97. If I can tell this story,
Please.
is he all
By the
right?
way, by the way, Scott, just so you know,
Yeah,
this is your platform. This is your show, brother. Like I don't. You can share anything you want, anything you don't want. I like it when guests come on and get more personal with it.
yeah,
So I love that you shared about your personal life, and please don't hold back.
that's all right. That's all right. Well, I'm in a really good place with my marriage now, so it's all good.
Yeah,
No,
I love your current wife.
yeah, I do too most days. So, so it was January of '97. I get a phone call from Jack's office, and they said, "Would you like to caddy for Jack?" And I went, "What?" And they said, "Yeah, we're doing a golf course opening about 45 minutes north, a place called Hammock Creek that was co-designed by Jack and his oldest son, Jack Nicklaus II. And they're going to do a grand opening. Want you to caddy for him." And I went, "Oh, okay, that sounds fun, a lot of fun." They said, "Well, we need you to drive up a week before and train." And I was like, "Well, I mean, push-ups, sit-ups, I mean, what?" So no, you're gonna have to walk the golf course. You're gonna have to get the yardages and all this. I said, "Oh my gosh, this is serious." So I go up there and I walk off all the yardages with an assistant pro. And then he says, don't worry about clubbing, Jack. Don't worry about reading a putt. But he's going to really want to know the exact yardage. Know about, not about 140. It's 140, boom, and how you got there. So I was prepared for it. Well, I get there that day and they made me wear a caddy jumpsuit. And I was like, man, this is way too serious. So the first hole, they drive down the middle and they're wearing microphones and there's PA systems traveling with it. I run up to the ball. I do the measurements and all this. And the assistant pro said all the yardages from the sprinkler header to the front of the green. So you calculate from that. I'm like, okay. So get there and I go, all right, Jack, it's 146 to the pin, pin six back, and it's a bunch of math. He goes, what? And I went through it again. He goes, how'd you get that? And I go, well, the yardage on sprinkler head is to the front of the green. I did +6 or whatever. And he goes, to the front? No, they're to the middle. And I go, no, they're to the front. And then he goes, he covers well, actually, he didn't cover it. He was on the microphone. He turns to his son, Jack, too, across the fairway. And he goes, Jack, did we do the sprinkler heads to the front or the middle? And he goes, to the middle, Dad. He looks at me, covers his mic, and he goes, first hole. First hole, and you screw it up. You can't even get the first shot on the first
Oh
hole
man.
right. I am dying. I am absolutely dying. And so I had to rethink everything. And then it got worse. The guy who trained me, unfortunately, he suffered dyslexia.
Oh
So
no.
all my numbers were transposed. I get to the par three and I go, okay, Jack, it's 169. And no, I guess it's 196.
Oh
It
no.
was a mess, and he did the don't quit your day job and all that. I was terrified. I thought it was going to be the worst day of my life. Well, I realized that Jack just has a wicked sense of humor.
Hmm.
And it was a blast. And it was a blast. And it's funny, for years and years, I kept a photo in my office of that day. And my wife packed it away somewhere. But I had to print out for a presentation I did recently. That was it. January
Wow.
1997. And another thing I learned when this arrived, it's a smiley
Wow.
face on it. Someone said he never does smiley faces unless he really likes you. And I was like, yes. So,
I First of all, I'm going to need a copy of that at some point in my office here.
yeah.
That is so legendary. And so at the time, you weren't formally working with him yet. You were
Oh
still
no,
a
I was still
journalist.
a sports. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Matter of fact, the story I wrote, this is legendary. Here's the column. Look at that.
new caddy, Scott Tolley golf.
See, what does it say? Jack's new caddy carrying a lot of baggage in the Geraldo Rivera mustache. Oh,
Oh
it's beautiful.
man, that's great. So how? So
He,
go ahead.
no, I was just going to say he really enjoyed the column. It was very tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
When you can weave in words like Speedo and a wife beater tank top into a column about golf, you know that you're walking a fine line. Well, he
So,
loved it.
yeah,
And
that experience probably bred that relationship, like that the tongue in
100%.
cheek, the humor, the personality, which you have a lot of. If people don't know you, people who do know you are probably laughing because they know Scott Tolley's got a ton of personality. So I'm sure
Well,
that experience with him kind of helped him warm up to you as a writer and kind of
it
wanted to
did.
let you in a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think there was some commonality and sense of humor. I learned
Hmm.
that. I mean, he loves to tease. It's not always good to tease back, and I can tell you a story about that later. And but I think we did click. He enjoyed the story, and I saw him at another event wherein he complimented me on it. He said, "I'm not sure Barbara really got your sense of humor, but we both enjoyed the story." And then, I've told you before, I was still covering golf, and I was at the U.S. Open,
Mhm.
1997
Oh, I love this.
Congressional,
This is the best. Yeah.
and I get approached, and I'm offered. Basically, he says, "Do you want to come to work for me?" Of course, you're like, "Okay, this is not funny." Where are the cameras? And I'm getting punked. But he goes, I said, are you serious? He goes, yeah, I need someone to handle my media PR and do some ghost writing for me, sort of like a publicist. The guy I have is moving on to a magazine to be an editor. And I was like, wow, well, yeah, I'd love to be considered. So the next time we got together was at the Senior Open at Olympia Fields, and he interviews me on the practice range. So I go from U.S. Open, Senior Open, then I get hired, and my first day of work is August 11th, 1997, and it's the Monday of the PGA Championship. So many moments of synchronicity that have to do with golf and the majors um, are tied to that job with Jack. And as you know, I mean, that's over 25 years, and um, we're still together in some form or fashion. After all, I mean, I've been married to him longer than my current wife, so why break up now? So,
Yeah. And Scott, I can't imagine, and for everyone listening who has whatever profession you're in, the stresses of everyday life, right? I have them, you have, everyone's got them, right? We all got them.
mhm.
The stresses of jobs, the stresses of finance, whatever it is. I couldn't imagine having to sprinkle on the top of being the publicist, ghostwriter, and then manager of
Mhm.
one of the biggest golf figures to ever live throughout those
Mhm.
years. As Tiger comes on, and even today with the feuds of tours and this and that, like there's just so much stress, I'd imagine, that exists in your life. Um, Curious to have like stories about that and how you deal with it. But also, I do want to say, because of you, I've had the absolute pleasure of meeting Jack and Barbara a couple times.
Mhm.
And each time I can't believe what amazing human beings they are. and the camp that you're in, and your personality fits right in with that, because they're so humble, they're so giving, and they're just so respectful of everyone around them. You would think someone of that level and that caliber would have an air, to them, and they don't. And
You nailed it, Michael. That's I mean, I don't think I'd be around for over 25 years if they weren't just genuine people. They're real. I mean,
yeah,
they are the quintessential Midwestern family. You know, they both grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and those Midwestern values are very, very obvious. I mean, throughout his life, he's always put in his priorities family first, then golf, then business. Sometimes golf and business interchange, but never did anything transcend the number one spot. And it's always been family. And you've heard the unbelievable stories of his commitment to family and what he did during his career, flying home in the middle of a significant tournament to watch a state football championship game and then going back. It's mind boggling, but they're real people and they're caring people. When my mother died, the first call I got was from Jack and Barbara. Of course, they were both on the phone. First flowers, Jack and Barbara. Jack, when he called, he said, it's part of life and things are going to go on, but just know we love you. And so it's very special. And it's, as we know in the game of golf, there's great people, but there's also some great personas that are out there for the
mhm,
public to see, and they're maybe not that person in private. Um, Jack is what you see. Except the Steely Blues are just all about concentration. He's not a mean guy. He's an absolute sweetheart with a big heart, cries at the drop of a hat. So it's been a blessing because not only has it been a great experience, and it's taken me to probably 50 countries around the world and meeting
mhm,
six presidents and Nelson Mandela and crown princes and this and that. But he's been a great role model. He's taught me about putting family first. He's taught me about giving back. How when you get to a point in life, um, give back, and no game is a better platform for giving back than golf. And you know that, and that's one of the beauties of it. The people that make it up and the causes that it supports, it's amazing.
yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. I'll tell a little story. I had the pleasure of meeting with the family. You were there for Mully to go over some stuff, and this is their character for everyone listening. I'm with my business partner Steve, who and we're talking about technology, and the younger sons, the kids are there, and clearly you can understand, like Barbara and Jack don't necessarily get the technology piece of it all, but they're still engaged, they're still with us, and even Barbara is like glued to the presentation. I'm like how amazing is that? Like clearly they don't understand what we're talking about, applications and technology, marketplaces, that, but they are just so in tune to it, and there's just the respect level there that they both have. And I love her. I think Barbara is just a phenomenal human being. I don't want to leave her out of this conversation because she's probably as big of an influence onto Jack, onto the golf community. And we talk about this muse, right? This relationship. Golf isn't necessarily a figure, but it's more of an energy that lives inside of all of us, I feel. And I think Barbara embodies that muse for Jack and for you and for a lot of us, because the game gives us a lot, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's no one that's given more probably than you through Jack, through the Nicklaus family, through the muse. So now, kind of advancing the conversation a bit. Unless we could tell stories all day of you and with Jack and that experience.
And I can
Um,
tell you some really funny ones about Barbara. She's the rock, but
yeah,
she's also the sense of humor in the family. She's a prankster,
yeah.
and she's played some doozies on me, but it's genetic. And her oldest son has played even worse pranks on me. But your show's not long enough for some of those. But there's
And
things that, oh,
any that you can share? Is there anything that people could just
uh,
to give some
I,
context to your relationship to them?
I hope this, gosh, if she hears this, I'll probably get killed.
I might send it
There's
to her
two.
directly.
Yeah, there's two. First of all, somewhere along the way in my life, I begrudgingly earned the nickname Sparkles, and I didn't like it. I don't like it, but I laugh at it now. I mean, it's bad when you go to the White House for dinner and your nameplate says Sparkles instead of Scott. I mean, one of your biggest nights of your life and the nameplate says Sparkles, please.
Oh
So
man.
we were at the President's Cup, and Jack was a what 4-time captain, and I was there for all of those. And one night, one morning, actually, I get out of bed and I go to the bathroom, and I look, and I've got red, white, and blue sequins and stars all over my body, stuck to me. And I'm like, what in the? Well, she had gotten a room key from concierge, came in and dumped red, white, and blue sparkles into my bed. And I was covered in them the next day. So that's her kind of sense of humor. The, the best one, and it went over a year, was one day, not long after 9/11 and anthrax and all this, I get a package, and it's brown paper just wrapped, and it's got my name written on it, and it says TOTMC in the return address, TOTMC, Fantasy Island, Ecstasy, Wisconsin. I'm like, oh my. So I had someone working with me. I go, hey, can you open this for me? So, well, we do open it, and I put, and there is a thong in there, a thong, and a little card that says, "Congratulations, you've been made an honorary member of the Thong of the Month Club, TOTMC." And I don't remember what it was, but I was like, "Who is this?" And I called everybody. I checked on everybody, and well, next month another one came, and then the next month another, and they were all themed. It'd be like Valentine's Day red, Easter it had a little fuzzy ball on it. Um, every month for 13 months, and I did accuse Barbara of it, and she goes, "Are you serious? Me buying a thong? You're." I said, "I'm sorry, Barbara. You're right. I just can't figure this out." Well, we have a Christmas party, and I'm thinking there's going to be a big reveal because she called me earlier in the day and said, "You ready for the party?" And I went, "Yeah, sure." She goes, "You never know what's going to happen at a party, right?" And I just went, "What?" So I was like, "This is it." I took all 13 thongs, tied them together like a boa, like garland for a tree, shoved them into a Christmas stocking, and put like Jack and Barbara. They love the Rat Pack. He loves Sinatra, so I got some greatest hits, Rat Pack, Sinatra, threw CDs in there, and then I was going to give it to him, and then aha, here comes the thongs. I forget about it. We're getting ready to leave, and my wife goes, "What about the stocking? And nothing's happened." She goes, "Oh yeah, that's right." So I took it out and I wrapped it around me like
Oh,
a boa or a
oh my
Christmas tree.
God.
Jack comes from the kitchen into the room I'm in, and he just stops dead in his tracks, looks at me, and goes, "What in the hell are you doing? What are you doing?" And I went, I didn't have an answer. And he goes, "You need to come with me." At that point, people were leaving, and there's like a kind of a receiving line where they shake Barbara and Jack's hands and they get a Christmas gift. He walks me to Barbara and he goes, "Barbara, look at this. Look at Scott. Look what he's done. Can you believe this?" And she gave me this look that I was 2 inches tall after that look. Suddenly my world just everything stopped. It was like in slow motion. I mean, it's like, that no, all that. And cameras were clicking and all this. She gave me this look like, and I wrote a letter of apology to her that I ruined her party. And I felt so bad that I was inappropriate. A couple months later, I'm at another function, and one of their kids, after a couple of drinks, says, "Man, my mom really got you, huh?" I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Thong of the Month Club." That was my mom. I went, "What?"
So she sold you on it the entire time.
The whole time. And that made me feel so bad. I wrote a formal letter of apology to her.
Oh my
And
God.
and I was like, and of course she had help. Her daughter Nan is an amazing person and a prankster. They collaborated on this, but I was sold for over 13 months and one Christmas party.
So
So
did you ever
that's what she does.
you're a 25-year-old college grad writing for a local paper? Fast forward, do you ever think you'd be getting pranked by one of the greatest golfers of all time and his wife at a function?
Absolutely not.
There's no
I
way.
thought there was a better chance of me asking someone if they want fries with that order. You know, I,
Like Scott? Like I've heard a lot of these stories and more, some that we can't tell. I'm I've so lucky to have gotten to know you and call you a friend because your personality lights up rooms. like evident by people looking at my name tag when I was Scott Tolley at the PGA show and asking where you were.
There were people that I owed money to. That's all.
Scott, like how man, like I'm struggling to find the words to this question, but like what do you accredit that to, like your personality, like to have someone like Jack Nicklaus see you out of a crowd of journalists and want you on his staff, and then eventually become his manager and right hand and help him through navigate the world of everything. Like where does that come from in your life? Did golf play a part of that? Did your family play a part of it? Like who is Scott Tolley? Where did that come from?
That is a great question without a, a definite answer. But my mother had a great sense of humor, as did my dad. My dad was, um, I called him the life of the party. We always loved going back to Virginia and seeing him around the holidays, especially for New Year's Eve. They were great people, great spirits about them, and I guess I got it from them. But I've always just loved being around people, and I guess there's a part of me that is not afraid of a moment,
Yeah.
whether it's making a career decision, a life changing decision, or like I said, meeting a president or getting up in front of 500 people to talk about folds of honor or talk about the Nicholas Children's Healthcare Foundation, whatever it is. Um, so it's a little bit of that, but it's really hard to pinpoint. Uh, but golf has been a huge part of it. It's introduced me to so many people, and golf is a great equalizer. You meet these great athletes that want to be golfers, and it humbles them. And you meet so many people that just love the game of golf for its challenge, its competitiveness, but its social aspect. And to me, that's what golf is. It's such a beautiful thing because the social aspect. I met you on a golf course, right?
Mhm.
I didn't meet you in a bar or club or something like that. I met you on a golf course,
Mhm.
and I knew immediately what a quality person you were.
Thank you.
And it's just an amazing connector. And like I said earlier, it reveals personalities, and uh, I guess it's a combination, a little bit of upbringing, but a lot about the places I've been blessed to work and be a part of.
I appreciate you sharing that and the kind words, my friend. This, like I said, this episode could be 5 hours to tell stories that I hopefully we'll do it again and just have a story time with you. But
Hmm.
to you, I will say you've never have knowing you and knowing the stories. You're very brave. You're an amazing human being that you show up. I think the hardest thing in life, to get personal about my story as well, it sometimes just showing up and having the guts to just start something. And that's kind of like seems to be a common theme in a lot of these conversations of whether it's stories of how I built this brand or built this company or became this in life, is just having the courage to show up. And you know you're definitely of that fabric and of that caliber, because man, like I've heard stories of you coming across Tiger in of different events with Jack, and like,
Hmm.
and I don't mean to be an asshole, so excuse my language. I don't mean to be like that, but do you know how hard it is to probably be in the company of that kind of greatness and still have that, like, I'm just here. And Scott, you have that, man. So like, what advice would you give to try and help our listeners out a little bit, because everyone's got that, right? And I call it the green jacket moment. And we'll
Hmm.
ask that question now. It's like when I was a kid, I'd have a 3-foot putt to win the green jacket. Obviously, I'm not going to have that chance in my life, but the green jacket is proverbial, right? It can be applied to anything. And right now, it's probably with Mully and helping the community. That's my green jacket. You know, would you have, like, what's your green jacket, like, or maybe in your journey, like what was your green jacket up until this point?
I obviously, if you can wear a green jacket for 25 years, that would probably be it. Just having the ability to be
Yeah, you've been
around Jack.
around
And
it, by the way. You've probably
yeah,
touched it. You actually.
I, I don't know whether now I got to really be careful who's listening to this, because yeah, there were opportunities to actually put it on, and that's a no. But I think a big part of it is two things. First of all, I feel bad that I never said that it's important to surround yourself with good people. You know, Try to factor out of your life negative people, people that are going to bring you down. One of
Mhm.
my greatest friends and inspirations in life is Lieutenant Colonel Dan Rooney, who's the founder and CEO of Folds of Honor. and he calls it parasitic drag. It's a flight
Wow.
term,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
things that slow you down in life, people that slow you down, if they can't impact your life in a positive way, you need to move on. You need to get rid of that. So my wife and my family have been amazing. My wife is, she teaches fourth grade kids. She's got 2 master's degrees. She does specific learning disabilities, autism, all this, has the most amazing patience, but she's the greatest sounding board. And having someone in your life, whether it's a good friend or a boss or a parent or a spouse, that's a great sounding board is very important, because you got to open up. And the other thing I would call it, and I hate to steal all his terms, but Lieutenant Colonel Dan Rooney talks about divine echo. And that's basically what you put out, you can get back.
Hmm.
All right. So if you can put out positivity and good things and be positive to people, giving, it comes back to you. If you're going to be an ass, you're going to be treated like one. So it's called the divine echo. And so I think it's a combination of things, surrounding myself with the right people and trying to put out what I want back.
Hmm.
So that
So
makes sense.
it makes perfect sense. And again, I'm witness to it. I see you do it all the time. You're never you're never not one to offer your support, your services within your right and means. You've always been a major help to me personally, and not even from a Mully standpoint. Just you've always been there, Scott. I just really appreciate you. You mentioned Folds of Honor, and I want to talk about that too
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
I don't want to just coin you as the Jack Nicklaus guy, because the amount of support you offer Folds and what they do is tremendous for the golf space. I don't know if you want to talk about that for a second.
Sure. And actually, I joined Folds of Honor about 18 months ago.
But you've been
And
with them, doing stuff with them for years.
oh, years. Yeah. And that's just it.
Years.
Jack's the reason why. Jack is, uh, he supports so many causes, but obviously, children's healthcare is the big one. Nicholas Children's Healthcare Foundation, but also our military. He never served, but he has this amazing affection, respect, appreciation, whatever you want to call it, for our military who have sacrificed. Sometimes their life, limbs, families, whatever. So he's always supported military. Well, probably a dozen to 14 years ago, uh, Lieutenant Colonel Dan, then Major Dan Rooney, came to Muirfield Village to award Jack the Corporal Brock Buckland Award. And it was a big, like, fighter helmet. And Brock Buckland, um, was someone who was lost in combat, and his remains were on an airplane when Lieutenant Colonel Dan was flying back, and he saw a guy in first class in dress uniform. He didn't think much of it. Went and sat in coach, and then when the plane was getting ready to land, the pilot came on and said, we, ladies and gentlemen, before we land, we'll let you know that on board is an American hero. So Dan's thinking, oh, it's the young man up in front, and said, we're flying back the remains of Corporal Brock Buckland, who was killed in combat, and his brother is in first class, and he's flown 7,000 miles with his brother to bring him home. And they were flying into Grand Rapids, last flight in, and the pilot said, when we land, we would ask you to remain in your seats until the remains of the corporal are taken off the plane. You know, uh, they land and everybody gets up. They don't pay attention. And it was such a disappointing thing. It's, they had nowhere to go but to their homes. And as Dan says, under that blanket of freedom that so many people have sacrificed for, Dan's sitting there and he's watching the coffin come out and he sees a mother and a son, small boy, and says, what's going to happen to them? What's going to happen to them? But that little boy, he's doesn't doesn't have a father to throw catch with. Who's going to make sure he goes to school? Well, from that was born Folds of Honor, which for 15 years has given scholarships and educational opportunities to the dependents, children and spouses of our fallen and disabled soldiers. And this past September, we also added first responders. But to date, they last year they gave out a record 9,000 scholarships for the academic year. They've given out 44,000, worth almost $220 million in 15 years,
Wow.
and it's life changing. I mean, there's no better way to honor someone's legacy than through education. And 42% of recipients are minorities, and I think we can agree that there's no better path to diversity than through education.
Mhm.
And I'm just so moved by it. And Jack supported Patriot Golf Day. He was the honorary chair, and I got to work with him and a gentleman by the name of Ben Leslie, who's a chief development officer. And I started saying, what an amazing organization, what they're doing, and the growth. And um, then Jack, after he turned 80, said, I don't know how much longer I'm going to do this, whether God tells me to stop or I just don't have the interest anymore. So you ought to explore other things. So he gave me that freedom. And I was having this conversation with Lieutenant Colonel Dan, and he said, raised his hand, said, let us be your landing place.
Mhm.
Let us, we welcome you. And that was the first group. And I mean, there's others that I've brought on, but they're they're very important to me. They've let me stay here in South Florida while they're based outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Owasso. But I'll see Lieutenant Colonel Dan on Monday for a speaking engagement down here in South Florida. But it's a very important part of my life now, and I'm just trying to help them as much as I can using my relationships in the game of golf because not only is Dan a F-16 fighter pilot, but he's the only one to ever become a PGA golf professional. So
Wow.
he loves the game of golf. He played at Kansas. He beat Tiger
Wow.
back in the day. Yeah, yeah, that just crushes your soul, doesn't it, Mike? But he he's a very special man. I'm blessed to know him, and he's doing great things. Yeah, he was on Fox this morning talking about Folds of Honor and a group of seven, I guess it'd be jumpers, paratroopers that went 7 days, seven continents,
Yeah.
and did jumps there to raise money.
I've had the
So,
pleasure of meeting him at the Nashville event last year that went with you. Amazing
hmm
human being, amazing story. Thank you for sharing that for people
yeah.
to update them. And obviously, what Folds does for bigger than the golf community, it's just their contribution to the world and to
hmm
our servicemen and women is extreme and so significant.
hmm
I'm curious. It's weird. I don't want to say weird. It's not the right word. I'm
By the way,
sorry.
is this when you put at the bottom of the screen for more information, go to
Yeah, yeah,
foldsofhonor.org? Is this one of those? Okay.
yeah. I'll for sure do that for you.
Yeah.
It's interesting how
Mhm.
interesting is a better word, not weird. Interesting how there's such a bridge, a connect between the golf community and philanthropy. Have you always seen that as a case? Because I know Jack, aside from the Nicklaus Foundations and what they're involved with, and there's a family, but now Folds is really involved with golf. Like I know I've seen some stuff
Mhm.
they've done with Puma, Cobra, right? Like the golf seems like the golf community is just so, and tell me I'm wrong here, but I really feel like golf is like this is the purpose of the podcast, and this is why I wanted to do this.
Mhm.
The game has given us so much, and I feel like that is the muse. Like it's given me stuff. It's given you stuff. Every single
Mhm.
guest I've had on this, and I'm sure if you're listening to this, golf has given you something, a connection with
Mhm.
your sibling or a family relative. It's given you a hobby. It's given you an outlet. It's given you an emotional. So it's given you something, and then and I think this is in our human DNA is that when we are given something, we don't just want to keep taking. There's like this law of reciprocity where we want to give back at some point. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's our energy, it's our gifts, it's our creations, and sometimes it's philanthropy. So I don't know if
Mhm.
you see that as well because you've been in this
Oh,
space for a long time.
oh my God. Are you, Michael? It's mind-boggling, but it's inspirational. I mean, no game gives back more. I mean, first of all, golf is a game for a lifetime. Men, women, juniors, seniors. It brings in everybody, and everybody can play. They can play as long as they're physically able to, and you can play with other people, different calibers. You can't do that in football, basketball, baseball. It's just a great game, but it's become such a great platform for philanthropy. I mean, I don't know if your listeners know this, but golf gives back almost $4 billion a year to charity, and I'm not talking about the PGA Tour. They surpassed $3 billion in giving in 20. I think they're about 3.5 billion now. But the game of golf annually raises close to $4 billion. And what's
Wow.
really special about that is 95% of the money raised goes to causes outside of the game of golf. So
Wow.
it might be children's healthcare, it might be military, but it's a very giving community,
Mhm.
and it's so powerful. I mean, if you think about Folds of Honor, we do tons of events, but at the core is golf. We have a golf team, a terrific woman by the name of Sarah Bush runs it, and I'm actually part of it as well.
Mhm.
But we do golf events all year, and on Memorial Day weekend, we do a thing called Patriot Golf Days, and
Yeah.
that's what Jack was the honorary chair of. It used to be on Labor Day, but a couple years ago, it went to Memorial Day, and in that weekend alone, we raised millions of dollars, and it's because of you know, a guy down the street at your local municipal, he's going to donate a dollar for every round,
Mhm.
but it's a golf industry wide, nationwide. And it's all people who love the game of golf rallying together for one 3 day weekend, Memorial Day, to raise money to educate dependents of fallen soldiers and first responders. It's amazing, and that's the game of golf. I love sports. I was a sports writer. I love football. I eat it up. I've got fantasy leagues and do player props, and if we're allowed to say betting on here,
Of course you can.
but but golf is just I can't I can't overstate it.
Hmm.
It's an amazing sport game platform. When I go Jack, I mean Jack was already hugely successful at a very young age, and his daughter Nan, who was 11 months old, was choking, and they couldn't figure it out. They go to a doctor and she'd be fine. So it got worse. So they took her to Columbus Children's Hospital, now Nationwide Children's, and found out they put an adult bronchoscope down her throat. I'm not sure why, but they found a blue crayon, and that's what was causing it. It was in her windpipe. Well, they broke it up and ended up going down. She got pneumonia. She was in ICU for like 6 days. But at that moment, and Jack's probably 26 years old, they looked at each other and they said, if we're ever in a position to help others, to give back, we want to be children. And so that's why the memorial tournament since 1976, the primary beneficiaries, Nationwide Children's Hospital. I mean, millions raised. Game of golf. I mean, how many tournaments have you been in? Charity tournaments, great causes.
Hmm.
You've hit me up for things, from great causes that you support.
Yeah,
So it's an amazing community, and I'm
I
glad you're
agree.
doing this show because
Yeah, thank you.
we're a rare breed. People who love this game. It's not rare because we're a big group. I
I
want
know what
us
you're
to
saying.
get bigger. I
Yeah,
want us to
I know what you're
get
saying.
bigger, but
And
yeah.
you said it, man. Like there's and for everyone listening, like this is not a shameless plug. I'm just going to be honest. The giving back program that even Mully does, like this is, you don't feel like you have to give back in the form of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, right? Like it's like giving back to this game can be so insignificantly small in your mind, but so substantial to someone else. That's why we started the Giving Golf program. Like I don't know if people know this because we just started it, but like for every transaction on Mully, we donate a sleeve of golf balls to less fortunate kids that want to play or are playing that can't afford
That's
golf balls
awesome.
because golf's so expensive, right? So
That
like
is, yeah.
even just using Mully as a platform to buy your golf tees, your golf shoes, new golf clubs, or sell stuff. Every transaction we're donating balls, that's insignificant. It doesn't cost you anything. It's just your time, right? So that's what golf. It's like the smallest domino can lead to the biggest effect, and that's what this community is about.
Oh,
Um,
100%. And I would tell one thing beyond the giving, any young person that might be listening to this, if you haven't tried the game of golf, please do, because like I said, it's a game for a lifetime. But you're going to find when you get into the business world, the connections you make. Everything that's happened to me is because of the game of golf. I mean, I'm starting to, I've got 4 jobs basically. I'm still supporting Jack when and where needed. I got Folds of Honor as my primary employer, but I'm doing consulting for others like H&S Sports, which is a tournament management company. They have 16 PGA Tour sanctioned events, including the Memorial Game of Golf. Uh, Recently, I agreed to start helping a friend of mine. His name is Ben Weprin. He's a founder and CEO of AJ Capital based in Nashville. And he owns a chain of hotels called The Graduate, and they're in 23 different states. But he also started something called Marine and Lawn. And what they do is they went to the UK and they found hotels at iconic golf destinations. And during the Open Championship, you might have seen this, but uh, Rusak's on the 18th hole,
mhm.
that's Marine and Lawn. Now that's their property, and there was so much attention. There was the Mannings up on the balcony. Ben is close friends with the Manning family. Eric Church, the mega superstar. But they've got like Dornick, they've got Troon. Um, I probably shouldn't say them all because some of them are going to be under contract, but it's a brand of hotels where these hotels are at iconic golf destinations, and we all
Yeah.
take golf trips, and it's giving them a luxury experience. But it's in the UK, and he just wants some help in the US golf media area.
Mhm.
And I said, I'm there for you. I found him. He found me because of Jim Nance, the silky voice of golf. He lives now in Nashville. They're friends. And he asked, who can I reach out to that understands U.S. golf media, who has connections? And he said, well, Scott Tolley. Then he talked to the head of Sirius XM PGA Tour Radio, Taylor Zarzor, asked him the same question. And why he answered with my name, I don't know, but that guy called me that day. And I'm just so impressed with everything he's done. He's like 43 or 44, but the game of golf, it's the game of golf. And I would just tell any young person out there, try it. You don't have to be great at it, but enjoy it, love it, because you're going to meet so many wonderful people. And even if you don't, it's going to give you hours and hours of endless entertainment and joy and satisfaction. And it'll challenge you. See, endless pursuit of problem solving, right,
I
Michael?
mean, yeah, that's it. I wouldn't be here without the game. Molly wouldn't exist without the game. I wouldn't know you without the game. Like I said, I'll keep beating this into the audience's head. Like this game is magical. The muse that it is, it's given me so many gifts from my family relationships, my friendships, my livelihood, my financial well-being. It's the golf has given so much. It's almost like it just it is. It is. And I couldn't agree with you anymore. I know even when I was younger, like it was a game that I took up because I wanted to be close with my dad. And I was like, I never
Mm,
like it. I never play it. But and I think it wasn't cool. It's kind of cool now. And I love seeing the trajectory of the
mm,
sport and where it's going, because the cool factor and how just seeing athletes outside of golf play it, it's like Steph Curry play it, and like the attention it's getting. It's just great, because I think this is my personal belief. I truly believe golf breeds good. And that's always our saying, is like more golf, more good in the world. So as cliche as or silly as it may sound, I think that the more golf being played, taken up at any level, like whether it's top golf hobby, whether it's, playing nine, whether it's competitive golf, doesn't matter. Like if a golf club's in your hand, there's going to be good in the world. And that's just my core belief.
I have to tell you, if you don't mind, one story
Please.
about the
Yeah,
power
go.
of golf and the connector. As I said, I've been blessed to travel a lot of different countries, but there was one instance that really moved me. I was in Morocco, and I want to say it's probably, yeah, I think it was 2010, and Jack was going over there, and we were going to meet with the Crown Prince. And I won't get into all the stories, but Jack just went there for site visits and work. He didn't expect to do anything with golf. He shows up to a range, and all of a sudden you hear the voice of Peter Kessler go, ladies and gentlemen, the greatest golfer in the 600-year history of the game of golf, Jack Nicklaus, who's going to hit a few balls and give us a clinic. And Jack goes, the heck I am. But in boat shoes, borrowed clubs, he gave a clinic. And then he finds out that he's supposed to play golf with either with the Crown Prince or inspired by. So he borrows a set of regular stiff Callaways, they're very flimsy or whatever, goes in boat shoes to this golf course. Meanwhile, he's there, and I find out that the golf course where he's playing was the favorite of King Hassan, the ruler of Morocco, and he died in 1999. And the course hadn't been played for 11 years, but it had been maintained every day just in case the crown prince or the family wanted to play. But no one had stepped foot on there until Jack. And it's because of the crown prince, how much Jack meant to his father and their family. And he wanted the honor of the next round of golf played there to be Jack Nicklaus. And so he played, I think, 9 holes, boat shoes and borrowed clubs. He shot a 37, but he didn't know this the whole time he was playing. So I told him that night the story, and we're at the palace, and Crown Prince comes in, Jack comes in, and they went eye to eye. Jack puts his hand on his shoulder, and he basically says, I heard about why you wanted me to play. And they both start crying, and security's like, everybody back up. It's a bromance moment. But I said, oh my gosh, another example of the power of golf. a golf course that hadn't been played in 11 years, but it was maintained just in case. And this guy, to him, the symbolic gesture of Jack playing this golf course that his father loved, it blew me away.
Yeah.
And these are the kind of people you meet through the game of golf. They're not all crown princes, you know, but
Yeah.
we meet amazing people with amazing character and amazing stories.
Yeah. Well, like I said, side note, I'd love to have you back on again in a few months as
Sure.
we both, as our paths collide again towards the golf season. I know this is winter time, but before we break this time, because this is a break, this is definitely that we're definitely going to do this again. So we've gone over so much, my friend. You know, your
Mm-hmm.
path to where you're at, what you're doing now, what you've done. We got to talk about some of the stories, not all. Didn't
Mm-hmm.
even scratch the surface of those. But Scott, one question I'd like to ask my guests, and I don't even think I've asked you this personally, so this will be a live question. Um, the thanks that you must have. Like I always ask my people on here, what go ahead and thank the people for where you're at. Thank your family. What's your thank you list, my friend, must be so long. And I'm sure there's some obvious ones on there, but I want to give you the time to thank the people in your life, in your camp, in your space that have helped you get here, the lives you've touched. Without you, man, and the Jack Nicklaus we all know today in 2023, my generation has been through maybe your voice, through your experience, through your writing, through your words. Obviously, Jack's his own man, and he's an amazing human. But man, the lives you've touched through that vehicle, through that megaphone, and even on your own, brother. Like I thank
Mm-hmm.
you for taking the time to do this. But so I'm going to be quiet now and let you take the mic and say,
Mm-hmm.
who would you like to thank, and as we wrap this episode up.
Well, that's probably three more episodes worth of thanks. But so last night I was connecting with a writer in Virginia who wrote a book called Draw on the Dunes about the 1969 Ryder Cup. And I helped him with it. And he's always been very appreciative of that. But he told me a story. He lost his father a little over a year ago. And one thing his father did was he took him back to their hometown and he went to all the people in his life who had shaped him, teachers, friends, family, ministers, whoever they are. He went to each of them and sat down and had coffee or lunch and talked to them and thanked each one individually and brought his son so he could see these are the people that shaped him. And I'm like, wow, what an amazing thing to do. I wish I could do that. I don't know if I have enough frequent flyer miles though, but I obviously have to go back to my mom and dad and the love and support they gave me, always encouraging me. I mean, first time I wrote a poem when I was in high school, like I thought I was going to just get the crap beat out of me, but it was really good. It was really good, and they liked it, and they supported that. They always supported me. My brother, I have one brother, two have half brothers as well, but my brother, who's 8 years younger than I am, he's always been there for me, still is this day. If there's a hard time, he's always there. Very faith, family first, all of that. The people in college that said, stick with this, don't go down another path, stick with writing. You have a gift. And I once spoke to an FSU, Florida State group of professional golf management students. They said, if you could leave college with one skill, what would it be? And I said, you're probably not going to want to hear this, but it's the ability to write. And they all chins hit chest like, oh, I was kind of hoping it was like, econ or, algebra or something. But so no, the ability to write what, no matter what you do, it's the ability to communicate effectively, whether it's an email or it's a letter from a GM to its members, a pro to its members. The ability to communicate effectively can be a lost art in this day of texting. And I still can't keep up with all the acronyms. And, I peaked at LOL. But you know, I do use SMH all the time because I'm always making mistakes, so shaking my head. But to be able to communicate and having people that encourage me to stick with writing, um, and then for a guy who's now no longer with us, Leo Suarez at this Palm Beach Post, to give me an opportunity to, you know, like in golf, risk and reward. I took a big risk and I got a big reward. And then for Jack and Barbara, who as Jack says, he plucked me uh, from the depths and gave me a real job. I always say I'm a recovering sports writer. So but he believed in me and gave me a chance, and he stuck with me. And Mike, I've talked to you about this. It's not all roses and fairy tales. There's hard times too. But
For sure.
he's always been there for me, and he and Barbara have always had my back, and of course I have too. I'm fiercely loyal. Uh, and and then there's my wife and my kids, who I am blessed to have three kids, Austin, Dylan, and Hannah, that love their dad unconditionally. And I'm sure I've screwed up along the way. And all my travels, it's hard to always be there, but I tried. And they recognize it and they appreciate it. And so it's just, the list is long, but those are some of the people, the main ones, but I could go on. And then, as I mentioned, one of my greatest inspirations is Lieutenant Colonel Dan Rooney, who gave me an opportunity, but he also showed me um, the right way to live your life, and all those, from the hat volition. That's his favorite word they learned in college, the power of choice and defining your legacy by the choices you make, to divine echo, to parasitic drag, to synchronicity, when things just line up. And it's just, he's been like a brother to me as well. So it goes on. And then there's friends like you, Michael. You
I
know,
appreciate
um,
you. Yeah.
I mean, you have a great spirit about you. I've never met anybody who is passionate about the game of golf more than you are. And it's not about whether you shoot 75 or 85 or whatever. It's, you love the game for every bit of it, for the fabric of it, what it does. And kudos to you and to Steve, um, for Mully, and for giving a great platform to celebrate the game of golf and all the good that it does. So kudos to both of you. And I just wish you nothing but huge success going forward.
Not too often I'm speechless, man. But Scott, you're a force in this world, man. Forget golf for a second. I wish everyone listening could have the pleasure of meeting you and spending a minute in your grace and in your life, dude. I can't thank you enough. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart, from the moment we met on the golf course to now, there's so much of love between us, and I'm so inspired by how you show up, because yes, we've talked offline on off air how tough this world can get. And I'm sure everyone listening can relate. This world is a full contact sport. Life is a full contact sport, and it doesn't care if you're ready or wearing pads or not. And it'll hit you in the face. It'll hit you when you're ready, when you're looking, and it'll hit you when you're not. And man, I'm just happy that we share the love for golf and that fabric you just spoke of. It's my escape into a world of surrender, because sometimes you just got to let go and you can't control it. And like you said, volition, the choices we make, good or bad, we got to stick by those
Mm-hmm.
choices. And
Mm-hmm.
man, I just, again, I appreciate you. I'll wrap up by saying thank you, man. And I love you. I will have you back on as we catch up at a later
Sure.
date. But anyone listening, please, Scott is a friend and he's always here to help. Please reach out to either one of us if you have questions, how to get involved in the game, how to get back in the game. And I think the big takeaway from this episode is have the courage to make a choice, have the courage to show up, because sometimes you don't know where that choice is going to lead you. It could lead you to one of the dream jobs of your life. It could lead you to your partner. It could lead you to an occupation, or it could lead you anywhere. But you just got to take that leap. You just got to have faith and you just got to go. So on that note, I'll say thank you. I'll say thank you for listening. I love this episode. Scott, I love you, brother. And we'll do it
Love
again
you,
soon.
man. You got
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you, Michael.